totally different. I've written 4 books, non-fiction, in sport. And obviously the task with writing non-fiction is to get it right, and to do your research, get the stats right, get the times right, the years right, the names right, all the rest of it. And to properly, add a bit of colour around the edges, but to kind of properly detail what you're reporting on. And the 4 books I've done, 3 of them are on cricket. 2 were on cricket. One was about sports people that are killed in their lives. So there was Killer Instinct, the trials and tribulations of murderous sports stars across all sorts of different sports, and people who had been convicted of killing. Kind of hence the interest in crime. And then the final book that I'd written on sport was in the Leeds United centenary year. I did 100 years of Leeds United managers, the view from the dugout. And obviously that was, all of those books that I've done were factual. The cricket book that I wrote, which was about fathers and sons in cricket and multi-generational cricket families, was allowed for a little bit more, not fiction, but a little bit more colour. Because I interviewed a lot of people for that to work out the pressures of following in the footsteps of a famous father, whether sport was in the genes and that kind of stuff. But but you have to be kind of obviously loyal to the subject and loyal to the facts. Whereas with fiction, it's all in there, isn't it? It's a German of an idea that kind of blossoms in your head, and you've got to try and get that to come out onto the page, to be entertaining and to be structured properly, to actually create a story that people are going to enjoy reading. And that's a totally different kind of challenge where, what's in my head's probably not a lot of people want to see. But to try and get that out and to be loyal to, it's not, you're not being loyal to the facts, but you're being loyal to your idea and loyal to your creativity. I mean, I was a local government housing officer and managed prior to enrolling on my creative writing degree. Finished that career and wanted to get back into doing something that I really enjoyed doing. I started not enjoying being a local government housing person, and so I went back to Leeds University, University of Leeds. Bretton Hall was the campus where the sculpture park is now. The campus isn't there anymore, sadly, because it's a great place to study. The sculpture park is there, and it's still a good place to go and have a wander around on a nice summer's day. But I knew I liked writing, and I knew I liked to be creative, and I didn't quite know how to channel that in terms of what kind of writing I wanted to do. And on the 3-year creative writing degree, you did everything. You did non-fiction, you did fiction, you did stage plays, you did TV kind of scripts, you did film scripts, you did all kinds of different stuff, poetry, everything. And I was hoping that I'd get good marks in some of it and not others, and I'd work out which one I was best at. I ended up getting quite good marks in all of it, which didn't really answer that question, but I knew which I enjoyed doing more than anything. But then when I made the decision that I wanted to go back into something I liked doing, so that was writing and sport were the 2 things that came into my head. So I ended up drifting into the sporting world and writing about sport, ended up broadcasting about sport, ended up commentating in sport, and it became all consuming. And all of those little germs of ideas I'd had when I was doing the creative writing degree were shelved, really. And then in 2025, I thought, if I don't do something about this now, I'm probably never going to do anything about it, because I'm very good at procrastinating and sticking things off until next week, or getting halfway through a project and not finishing it. And I thought, really, 2026 is going to have to be the year where you actually start finishing some of the things that you thought about. So there were 2 projects that were on the go in my head and a little bit on paper. One was a stage play, and I finished that. And so I've got a theatre script that's fully formed and functioning and finished. And I need to try and work out a way of getting that from page to stage, because that's something I'm really not quite sure about how to do. I've entered it into a few competitions, but I need to be a bit proactive over the next few weeks with trying to actually get that in front of people to try and get that performed. Because I think that would be awesome to sit in a theatre and watch something that was once in my head as an idea that then I put onto a page as a script being performed by actors on a stage. I think that would be quite special, and I'd love to get to that stage. And the theatre script was something which was about a stag and a hen do, and about all the things that can go horribly wrong on a stag and a hen do. I won't tell you anything more because hopefully you'll buy tickets and go and see it performed at some stage. Obviously the tribute act, the book, is something which is a crime thriller, which was in my head when I was doing the creative writing degree, which is nearly 20 years ago now. So that's been kind of bubbling up, and in a way that's been good for the process, because as I've thought about it every now and again through that 20-year period, and at some stage written some of it, it's blossomed a little bit more and ideas have come. I mean, you'd hope that a creative mind would have a few ideas in 20 years, wouldn't you? So I think the book's probably better now than it would have been if I'd written it in 2007. But yeah, it's taken a while to get it from in the brain into a book form between covers, with my little face on the back there and tribute act on the front. And but I'm really proud of how it's turned out. I think the characters are well formed. I think the story's good. I think the idea that I had back in the noughties has stood the test of time. And I think if you read it, I think you'll enjoy it. It's because that's what I enjoy reading myself. I think as a writer, you need to do something that excites you and that you'd like to read yourself. And that, you know, when you put that final full stop to the book, be happy that that's something you pick off the bookshelf yourself and read on a beach or read in the bedroom, and be entertained by it. And I think if you try and write in a genre which is not your forte and you haven't had experience of actually reading yourself, you don't know that genre so well. So I think I know how to structure a crime novel. I know what I like to read in terms of jeopardy and danger and what have you, and the psychological drama of a crime thriller. So that was really what led me to that. And I did a creative writing degree at the University of Leeds, which I finished in 2007. And the reason I did that degree was because I knew I liked writing, and I was trying to work out what kind of writing I wanted to do. And I ended up going down the sport route of writing about cricket and other things. And that kind of took me away from the creative side of things. And there was a creative itch in me, I think, that needed scratching. And I'd had this idea for Tribute Act all the way back in that degree. I knew that there was a book that I wanted to write. There was kind of the germ of that idea that was there. And because other work took over, I never really got time to do that. And then last year, I thought, if I don't actually start doing some of these things that are in the head and actually trying to get them on the page, I'm never going to do it. So that's why I think the first paragraph of this first chapter of this book was written 6 years ago. And then there's been bits added to it. Then I lost my computer. I had to start again. And so it's been bubbling underneath for quite some time, and now it's finished. Yeah, I mean, the first part of that, I mean, you asked me the difference between writing a factual book and a non-fiction book. In a way, non-fiction's a little bit easier. You need to create all of the stuff yourself, but you don't have to have any of those, that research time. To do the book you're mentioning, the Killer Instinct book, I had to do a lot of research on that. There were 30 different people, and obviously needed to kind of go through their stories and what had actually led them to end up in prison, basically, for killing somebody. With this book, it's kind of all coming out of your heads, but you've got parameters there that it's got to be in the bounds of realism. So there is a little bit of research in sort of terms of police protocols and processes and how they might actually tackle the crimes that are in the Tribute Act book. But you've got a lot more freedom to, maybe not bend the truth, but kind of stretch that. And Felix Tanner, who's the lead character in this, who's the detective, he's got his own problems in his life, as a lot of detectives have, as a lot of everybody has. So he's got that kind of bit of a backstory there. But he's a a DCI that I think is faithful to what he would do in real life. And then he kind of obviously gets confronted with these murders that are happening in the north of England. I think it's a really good book. I think it's one book that if I picked it off the shelf, I would enjoy reading it, whether it's on a sun lounger in Marbella or in my bedroom at night, trying to wind down from the day. I think it's something that I've put a lot of work into. So I've read a lot of crime thrillers. I know how to structure one, I know how to kind of put one together. And I think this is one which will capture people's imaginations. It's not necessarily a whodunit in terms of, you don't turn to the final page and suddenly realise the butler did it, although the butler did write it. You don't realise that somebody you weren't expecting was the killer. It's not one of those where it suddenly twists right at the end. If you've read a lot of crime thrillers, you'll have probably pieced it together. It's more about how it's going to come together, the suspense, whether people are implicated, whether people are in danger, and how it unveils and how it resolves itself towards the end of the book is really the kind of key to the book. But I just think it's bloody good. When I started writing Felix Tanner, he was your stereotypical middle-aged, battered, beaten, bruised kind of individual who was a little bit shabby around the edges. He remained shabby around the edges. He's certainly not a 100% fully formed, emotionally intact human being. But he is probably a little bit more together than I actually initially had him, and I think he's probably better for that. He's been hurt in love, he's been hurt in life, but he's got a lot of experience as a policeman. He's seen a lot of nastiness, and he's come out the other end. And despite the fact that he's probably a little bit brusque and a little bit maybe intimidating is probably too strong, but maybe a little bit somebody that maybe people don't warm to immediately, at his heart he is a very, very nice person, and he wants to do the right thing, and he believes in good. If he was a superhero, he would have the cape and he'd be fighting for truth and justice, and that's basically, as a DCI, that's exactly what he's fighting for. But as we go through the book, you realise that he's got issues and he's had problems in his past, and he's trying to kind of sort himself out as well as sort the crime out. The killer is, I think, interesting in this book because he is not somebody who is doing it for the thrill of killing. I mean, as you say, the true crime genre, I mean, I watch things on Sky and on television, documentaries about serial killers. We've got this like morbid fascination with what actually drives people to do this, and what, evil basically. And people, despite the fact you want to stay away from evil, people are kind of drawn to it just to kind of investigate it and have, as I say, a fascination with it. The serial killer in this book, and I'm not going to give anything away by saying there's a serial killer in the book. He is a serial killer. He is a serial killer. I've given away the sex of the killer there. But the serial killer in the book is somebody who isn't glorifying the act itself, but is compartmentalizing it, is very structured, is very deliberate and controlling in the way they are performing their art as they see it. And that is, I think, even probably a bit more disturbing in a way than somebody who is just a bit of a nutter. This person isn't a nutter in the way that you probably think of some kind of like rabid serial killer just going around stabbing people for the fun of it. This person is doing it from a standpoint of trying to complete something, trying to do something, trying to make their mark in life. And that, to me, is more scary, because that is somebody who is probably really, really not very nice. And he's doing stuff which is, that nobody else, no sane, normal, rational person would be doing. But they're justifying it and building it up in their head as being their project, their thing that they are doing, and trying to achieve something and complete something. And that's just a little bit chilling, isn't it? There's ideally, if people buy it, and that obviously is an if, but I think you'll like it if you buy it. People watching, if it goes okay and people warm to Felix Tanner as a DCI, and I think there is definitely a second book there. I've already started thinking about what that second book might look like. And you see quite a few writers, they'll have their lead character who comes back for more and comes back for more, sometimes 10 or 15 times, sometimes maybe 2 or 3 times, and then that writer moves on to something else. But I think there's definitely scope for episode 2 of Felix Tanner and his escapades, and his, as I say, it's not just his work as a DCI, it's him as a person as well, and whether he ultimately finds happiness in his own private life too. So yeah, there's definite scope for him to come back and investigate more. Totally, because I think there is good and evil, and there is that spectrum. There are grey areas in between, of course there are, but I think somebody who is a serial killer is evil. And we all want to try and be as good as we can possibly be, and ideally be better than we were yesterday. Every day we get out of bed, and I think Felix Tanner is definitely, as a detective, and as a human being, somebody that believes that he is fighting against the bad guys, and he is fighting for good. He's not, as I say, not got everything right in his life, and everybody makes mistakes, and everybody does bad things at times. But Felix is somebody that gets out of bed in the morning and believes that good will win through and will triumph. Having said that, in his history, he's seen good people being killed and has had to investigate their disappearances and their murders. So, like you said, there is kind of a spectrum in between the good and bad. But I'd like to think that most people, when they get out of bed in the morning, want to be good. And want to do good things and want to make people happy and want to enjoy themselves and have positive impact on the people they meet every day, and not go out and be serial killers. And you'd like to think that the majority of the population believe that, and Felix Tanner's definitely in that camp. I think as a reader you want to not necessarily relate, but understand what the main characters are about in the book. And I think with crime thrillers, you want to have some kind of understanding about the lead detective, what he's trying to achieve, who he is as a person, whether you like him, dislike him, but you want to follow him and hope that he succeeds in his investigation of the crimes and what have you. In this book, he's got a sidekick, the Batman and Robin kind of scenario. Felix Tanner is the DCI, he's the Batman. Elise is his detective sergeant. She's new to him, but he's recruited her because of her. He's seen in her something that he really likes, in terms of she provides something to the bigger picture. She provides the bits of the jigsaw that he doesn't have, so he's recruited her to fill that void. And you quickly find out at the start of the book that she's a strong woman, and she knows her own mind, and Felix respects that. And they both have their stories that develop through the book. I think their relationship's important. The relationship that there's a journalist that's in the book called Rachel, who is somebody who becomes very important to the story. She covers the story. And so she has a big impact to the plot as well. And it's really about how their private lives, their working lives kind of wind around each other. And towards the end of the book, how are they going to be affected by the crimes that they are either writing about or investigating. There's a couple of times where Elise gets into the car and she turns the radio on. And this book is written in the run-up to Christmas and through into the New Year. Not because there's any festive notions to the killings, not because there's any real mention of Christmas or anything like that. It's not a Christmas book. It's a little bit like, I guess, Die Hard in that respect. It's a detective investigation set around Christmas rather than the other way around. But she turns the radio on, and I think Robbie Williams plays once, Angels. I think there's another instance of another song being played, and then the final song she turns on is a song that I've written myself and released myself. I write music and songs and publish them. So the final song that she puts on the car radio that the DJ introduces is by Holden Marr. Probably most people that read that will be thinking, who the hell's Holden Marr? There is a little bit of a method to my madness, because I'm hoping a few people might just Google him or Spotify search him and play the track, and it might get him a little bit more airplay. But yeah, the Holden Marr is my creation, and somebody that is pretty important to me, and another kind of as a hobby really more than anything. But he's mentioned in the book. It's a little bit, I guess, not to kind of make myself sound more grand than I am, but Alfred Hitchcock walking along the back of a scene or something, Holden Marr being in the book is just a little bit of an in joke, I guess, or an in thing, because he's very much part of me. I've thought about this actually, and I shouldn't think about this, because this is getting ideas well above my station. But I mean, you never know. You never know how it might go. I was thinking if it was made into an ITV drama, because you know with crime thrillers, they either get made into an ITV drama over 4 or 6 parts on a 9 o'clock on a Sunday evening or something like that, or it could be a Hollywood film. I've got this horrible. No, that's not the right way to answer this, because Martin Clunes, if you're watching this, I quite like a lot of stuff you do, but I've got this horrible feeling that Martin Clunes would end up being Felix Tanner, and in my head, that's not the person I want to play him. He's a little bit more shabby and rough around the edges than that. He's more of a Harvey Keitel kind of appearance in my head. Not ugly, not bad looking, but not a Brad Pitt, George Clooney kind of. He's not somebody that would walk into a room and all the women would go, wow, look at that fella. He's somebody that would kind of probably blend into the background a little bit more. So a Harvey Keitel, if I'm thinking about an English actor, I used to love, I spoke about Die Hard a little bit earlier on in the thing. I used to love, Alan Rickman was a really good actor, sadly deceased now, died the same year as another one of my heroes, David Bowie. Somebody like him, not classically handsome, but you know, a bit of a presence on screen, and would be a little bit shabby. Not quite as shabby as David Jason in Touch of Frost. I'm not going down to that kind of shabby. He's a step above that, because David Jason was seriously shabby in Touch of Frost, wasn't he? And strange enough, one of the Touch of Frosts was actually filmed on the Bretton Hall campus where I studied the creative writing degree. But yeah, somebody somewhere in that Harvey Keitel, if he was from the north of England, would be perfect.
Cool.
So if you're watching, Harvey, there's a role for you. And Elise, who's the detective sergeant, she needs to be somebody who's a bit younger than Felix, who's capable of playing kind of a strong woman, knows what she's doing, but also probably a step up in terms of attractiveness from Harvey Keitel. So somebody like Jodie Comer, who was a Villanelle in Killing Eve. She's a really talented actress, probably not with a Liverpool accent, so she'd have to put another accent on for it, but I think she'd be excellent in the part as Harvey Keitel's sidekick in the film. And I can't give you a character for an actor for the serial killer, because I don't want to tell you what that serial killer looks like or behaves like. This is the 5th time I've done it, and I'll tell you what, one of the big differences actually, because when I did the factual books, non-fiction books, I had the idea for them, I started writing them, and probably about a third of the way through the process, I thought, what on earth have you done, James? This is an absolute, you've taken on far too much, and probably the rewards from this are going to be nowhere near enough for the amount of time and effort you're putting into it. And I was right on that respect. But you get to about, and you feel like chucking it out the window. But when you actually get the book in your hand, when the box comes with your copies in, that's quite special to see your name on the spine, and to know that all of the work you've put in is between those covers, and will be between those covers forever, because there's always going to be a copy of it in the British Library Museum. What's that's out towards Wetherby? It's always going to be out there, and people are always going to be able to read it, and people will buy it, and that's quite exciting to know that's going to happen, and your words are going to be read. there was a slight difference, I think, with this one, which was better in terms of doing the fiction, because it's all coming out of your head. You don't think, I've got to trawl through all of that book to do some research. You don't think, I'll need to Google that guy and find out what his his history was, and go through millions of Wikipedia pages and hope that they were right, and all that kind of stuff, because all of your ideas and all of the little forks in the road are coming out of your own brain. And that's actually quite exciting, because wherever you take, and there were a few things in this, when I actually wrote the end quite early on in the process, because I wanted to know where it was going, to know where to steer them to. And I then changed that twice in the writing process, changed a little bit of it, and I moved things around a little bit to be a little bit more structured and try and get them in the right place. And that's quite exciting, to be able to move things around. You can't do that with factual books. Yeah, you can't suddenly make somebody younger or older, or move them around, or make them die earlier or later, because that's all set in stone. Whereas when you're writing a fiction book, you can change the process, you can change the timeline, you can put things in a different way, you can exaggerate something, you can take something out completely. And that is quite good. And then so that keeps you, I think, entertained as a writer as you go through. And then when you finally finish it, kind of releasing it into the wild is quite with all 5 books I've written, the actual final bit of saying, right, it's finished, that is something that people don't do easily, I don't think. Because you want to get it as right as you possibly can, as correct as you can. And therefore the temptation is to overdo it, overcook the mixture, and keep going back to it to try to take out one word here and take out a full stop there or whatever, to try and make it perfect. You don't need to be perfect with stuff like this. At some stage you've got to hand it over and say that's the book. And once you've done that, then when you actually finally hold it in your hands and you are looking through it and thinking, yeah, this is what I've done and this is good, and I like the front cover and I like the way it's all put together, that's quite exciting. I don't know if this answer is going to come across very well, but I always think women look better with clothes on. It leaves a bit more to the imagination. And I think murders are better that way as well, cloaked in a bit of mystique and a bit of leaving things to your imagination. And you probably your imagination is probably far worse than what I can put on a piece of paper. And I think by doing it like that, you let people kind of take it their own way. Whereas I think if you are really gory and you detail every single thing that's happened in the killing, some people obviously like that and get off on that. I don't really. I think that's probably a bit too much. I think leaving something a little bit behind the curtain and allowing you to pull that curtain back and write your own words in there and create things in your own imaginations is stronger, I think, in many ways.
Cool.
Did that work? The women look better clothed?
Maybe 20 years ago. I thought it was good.